Okay, Google, play Hype and Cowl Podcast on iTunes.
Playing the latest episode of I'm Too Effing High.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Hype and Cowl Podcast. I'm sitting here with tech expert and IT black belt, Ryan Brungart. Ryan, it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's start from the tippy top. And when I'm talking tip, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about that bat dick. So DC Comics has recently decided to start publishing their more risque content under the banner of Black Label. First of which, Batman Damned.
I would say, do you still have the picture of it?
I posted the picture on the Hype and Cowl Instagram. For anyone that's interested, if you really haven't seen this big fat bat dick, go to the Hype and Cowl Pod Instagram. You'll see it. There's a couple of shots, a couple of angles. It's a very juicy cock. It's a very juicy cock, if I do say so myself.
What rating would you give that?
I would probably give it 5 dick veins out of 7 dick veins.
Oh.
In the scene, he's coming out of the Batmobile, and he's removing his armor, he's removing his gear, his costume, and then before you know it, flop. In the context of it being bat-related, we'll say flap. There's 2 scenes, like 2 panels, where you see Batman's dick. This has been the first time that I know it's been at least Batman. Every time I read this article, it's always, this is the very first time Batman's cock has been featured in an actual comic book. And they make it sound like other superheroes' cocks have been featured in comic books. Batman's a shy guy. I mean, you know, he likes his privacy. Batman's got a secret identity, and as does his dick, is what I'm saying. So, of course, you have Batman and his alter ego secret identity of Bruce Wayne, but you also have Bat Dick and its secret identity of Bruce Wayne. This content was brought to you by creators Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. Lee Bermejo also did the Batman Noel story, and you can really see it in the art, especially in the Batman design. And Batman Noel, for all you fucking nerds out there, pulling it out of the shoebox for Christmas time, is actually his take on the Charles Dickens classic of A Night Before Christmas. If you're familiar. Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Future, Ghost, starring Patrick Swayze.
God damn it.
So anyway, now I know that I completely ruined your earlier segue, which was really on point. Yes, we will discuss the fact that Ruby Rose, everyone's favorite lesbian? Is she a lesbian?
I believe she is, and I would say that's a fair statement.
I've heard the name. I know that she is a pretty prominent character in Orange is the New Black.
Orange is the New Black. That's, I think, where she kind of got her start from. But then she was recently in John Wick.
Everything that I know about her, I just said. That one time when I mentioned her being on that one show I don't watch, that's all I know. I can't say much about Ruby Rose, but I can say more about, I believe her name is Cassandra Cain, also known as Batwoman. She's not a traditional character. She hasn't been around for a long time. A lot of people are familiar with Batgirl, and then there was a Batwoman that they did a Batman the Animated Series movie on.
I remember that, yep. And I'm not quite sure why Batwoman is considered Batwoman, other than she dresses just like Batman, but she wants nothing to do with Batman.
She doesn't, yeah. Initially, she's like, hey, I'm not part of your little fucking gang. And everyone's like, oh, really? Because you sure as fuck are wearing our colors. But
I was going to say, haven't you seen the little animated thing on Netflix, Bad Blood?
I have seen that. I have seen that.
I mean, that's kind of where she comes into play, is she's just stalking around Gotham, and then she helps Batman get kidnapped, basically, and then she has to go and try and help save him. So that's really, I would say, where the start is right now.
I just don't know like how accurate that is to like her comic book origin.
I would say right now, that's probably as much information I can give you.
And that's probably what they'll go off of. But here's the thing. Well, just let me break down the character real quick. She is one of the first openly gay female superheroes in the DC universe.
Correct.
Her lesbianic tendencies is very tightly knit into the identity of the character. Cassandra Cain is the daughter of a military general, I believe, turned vigilante. Now, what do I think of Ruby Rose as Batwoman? Everyone's like, oh, the costume is so comic accurate. Number one, fuck you people. You don't know shit. Your parents are ugly, and they don't love each other anymore. Yeah, on the whole, she's got a cape, and she's got boots, and she's wearing black. Yeah, it's a real fucking accurate Batwoman costume. My biggest gripe is the belt.
You mean the belt that's cocked off to the side that makes no sense whatsoever?
Yeah, why? The only reason you would be wearing a belt is to hold your gadgets. Does that belt look like it's holding gadgets? Does it look like it has the capability of holding gadgets?
No, I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and she has 2 pouches on it, and it looks like it could carry some spare change for like a bus ride home or something, but that's about it. Back to the picture, though. Her face looks funky, and I don't know if it's just because of the Photoshop they have going on here, but, I mean, it kind of looks like they took the Val Kilmer Batman and put his head on her body.
Yeah, let me take a peek.
I mean, take a little gander at that. Doesn't it look like Val Kilmer's Batman on a woman's body?
I will say that Val Kilmer was pretty famous for having the most seductive bat lips.
I would say he still does.
You know, and the thing about that is, like, she is holding her cape up like a fucking child on Halloween. And she's holding it with her fingertips. It looks fucking stupid, dude. You know what? I'm sure it's going to be fine. And I enjoy the fact that they're bringing in more mainstream, more prominent DC characters into the Arrowverse. Very cool. But I don't have to be happy about it.
Not to change the subject.
I think we can change the subject.
The Titans show on the DC Universe states that Batman is a killer in that show as well.
Is he a killer in that show?
That's what they're saying.
I know that in the initial trailer, they showed Robin, like, shooting people in the neck and, like, stomping on faces and shit. And I didn't know if that was a dream sequence or what the fuck was going on with it. I think I've heard that they've mentioned that Batman may be a killer in that universe as well. Now, to be honest, I don't mind the fact, cinematically, Michael Keaton was slapping dudes off of roofs. The Adam West Batman killed a few people on accident. I mean, Batman in live action kills more often than not, is what I'm saying. Traditionally, his comic book version, he doesn't kill, and more so he doesn't use guns. Because, like, you know, he lost his parents to gun violence. So that's where that's rooted in.
But if we're going to talk about that, then do we go to the Ben Affleck Batman where he was straight murking fools in the warehouse? Alfred was involved. Like, there was a lot of death.
I read a quote from Zack Snyder. And he said, listen, Batman's not a murderer. He might be, you know, an accessory to manslaughter. If he throws you off a moving train, he's not killing you. The ground might be.
Well, but at the same time, you would consider Batman to be very meticulous on what he would be doing.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
I mean, if he's going to be throwing you off of a moving train, he knows you're going to get your head smashed in.
I'm sure that character of Batman is 100% relying on the fact that it's going to kill you. That's just Zack Snyder trying to double back on it. But like I said, to be honest, I don't mind. Him using guns is kind of weird. Nobody wants to see Bruce Wayne using a gun, even when it's like Justice League, where he takes one of the Parademons' weapons and he starts like blasting other Parademons with it. A lot of people were uncomfortable with that. They're like, no, Batman doesn't use guns. Now, the Jim Gordon version of Batman, there's one thing worth mentioning. Jim Gordon became Batman after Bruce Wayne lost his memory. That's why Jim Gordon assumed the mantle of Batman. And it was actually like a Gotham police sanctioned Batman. But the coolest thing about the Jim Gordon Batman was that he had a gun that shot batarangs.
That is pretty legit.
It was fucking cool. And that was
that'd be way more accurate than just throwing some shit.
Yeah, maybe Batman can fucking stick a dude, you know, with a batarang from 70 yards away. But Jim Gordon's not a fucking ninja.
Right.
He's not trained to throw shuriken. He's not trained to throw ninja stars. He can't do that shit, but he is a damn good cop. When people think Jim Gordon, they say, now that's a damn good cop. So what else do we got in regards to DC news?
We have the Aquaman extended trailer.
Yeah, that's right. It's crazy to think that it's going to be the Aquaman movie that saves the DCEU. Obviously, people have always talked shit on Aquaman, even people that don't know shit about superheroes, for good enough reason. Now, Jason Momoa, on the other hand, I would let him impregnate my wife in front of me.
He is quite the slab of meat, though. Let's just put it that way.
And he does dope shit. I follow him on Instagram. He's always throwing axes. He's got like a signature stout made by Guinness. He's got a signature guitar made by Gibson, which I thought was cool because he was actually supposed to play the new rebooted version of The Crow, and he stepped away from that. The director for the new Aquaman movie is James Wan, and he's more famously known for the Saw movies.
From what I was reading, there's quite a few scenes of horror in Aquaman.
I hope it's scary as fuck. You know, and this just might be me because I'm a pussy. There are very few things that rival the fear that one can be stricken with while in deep water. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you don't know what the fuck's underneath you. It doesn't matter where you are, dude. You can be in the deep end of your friend's pool. Deep water is always scary as fuck. If you're in a boat in the middle of a lake in the middle of the night,
ooh, that's
scary as shit, dude. Speaking of Aquaman saving the DC universe, speaking of Aquaman saving the DC cinematic universe, also known as the DC Extended Universe, which now really doesn't have an official title. And I think it did at one point, and it just sucked a bunch of dick. Like a bucket of dicks. Like a busload of dick buckets. Like a bucket of dicks in every seat, occupying every available seat. Fake dicks, real dicks, small dicks, big dicks, bat dicks. You know, I want to mention this now that we're talking about the bat dicks again. So, DC Black Label is going to come out with more adult content. And along with Batman Damned, they have a Superman Year One story.
Okay.
What do you think that's going to consist of? It's under a Black Label umbrella. To specify that this has adult themes, do you think it's Superman trying to save people but accidentally ripping them in half? That's what it has to be, right? It's not going to be I don't know how to be a superhero. I keep accidentally fucking all these chicks.
There's definitely going to be some sort of gore.
Jumping back to Aquaman, now that I have mentioned probably about 17 times that it might be the one to save the DCEU, now we have to consider the fact that both Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, they've both been removed from any foreseeable Batman and Superman project.
Did Warner Brothers actually comment on that, saying Henry was out?
I have reported on the fact that Ben Affleck was out as Batman, probably 6 or 7 times. But I read something that made me believe, it convinced me, for the most part, that it was official enough to report on it for an 8th time, this time including Henry Cavill's Superman. So no new Shazam news. I haven't seen anything new about Shazam, no
Not
featurettes,
since that trailer.
Nothing.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about him lately.
Not a goddamn thing. And we've had 3 Aquaman trailers, really. I'm kind of scared right now. But I won't tell you why. But I think it's fine. I think it's good.
Well, that's a promising thing to say.
So let's shift it up a little bit. Let's talk about some Marvel stuff. Unless you got more DC stuff over there.
I have 2 Marvel things.
Okay.
The first one I'd like to bring up, though, is Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, what the fuck? Now, there was a rumor that Disney wasn't going to release Dark Phoenix. That motherfucker should have been out 3 years ago. They did reshoots, and they did reshoots for the other movie, too. Their New Mutants movie, which is their horror X-Men movie.
Speaking of that one, where is that movie
That's
at?
what I am saying, man. And that's why people were speculating that maybe Disney's not going to release these new X-Men movies.
I'm not a big fan of the trailer they pulled together.
The trailer, I would have liked to have seen more space shit, even though they're kind of implying that they're doing the same thing that they did in Last Stand, where the Phoenix is this subconscious psychic entity that Jean Grey has created. I'm really hoping that that's not the case, that maybe they think that's the case, but then they eventually discover that it's some primordial spirit of, death and destruction. In all of the different dimensions, the ultimate universe, 2099, all these alternate dimensions, one Phoenix Force. The Phoenix mantle has been held by more people than just Jean Grey. Matter of fact, currently in the new Thor comic book, which takes place at the end of time, or at least this segment of the story does, Wolverine is the current host. In this story, Thor travels to the end of time, and he sees Wolverine as the Phoenix, and of course Wolverine's I hope you got beer. That's like the only thing that's said by him the first time you see him as the Phoenix Force. So, yeah, Dark Phoenix, it's probably going to be a crock of shit, dude. If we're being honest, let's just say that I'm upset because at the end of X-Men Apocalypse, for the first time ever in live action, you see the X-Men in their comic book costumes, or as close to their comic book costumes that you have ever seen. But in the Dark Phoenix trailer, they have like the new X-Men costumes where it's just all black with a big yellow X on their chest.
Were we just talking to one another?
I think maybe, which is a damn shame.
Because there was some good stuff there.
Yeah, we had some slamming content.
We're not going to be able to recreate that.
No, we won't. You know what? We're bringing this up for the very first time. This is the first time we're talking about it. So, Spider-Man Far From Home is in production as we speak. The new costume, goddammit. Because I fucking love this costume, my friend. Do I think it's an improvement from the Homecoming costume? Yeah. I mean, it's different and it's good.
Okay.
And I like it much better than the Iron Spider costume. This costume, you know, it's reminiscent of the Superior Spider-Man costume. It's reminiscent of some Alex Ross designs. You could even say the Miles Morales costume, the Ultimate Spider-Man, and also a version of the 90s Ben Reilly Spider-Man costume. Red and black. Everyone always fucking loves red and black. You can't lose with that combination. I mean, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, The Stinger. I'm talking about NWO Wolfpack, red and black.
Oh, damn.
Fuck that Hollywood bullshit. But anyway, so this costume, no sleeves, cuts off at the shoulders. So the shoulders and the gloves are separate. Internal web shooters. So in Homecoming and in Civil War, you saw the web shooters outside of the gloves. And this one, it's more sleek. It's tucked inside. And probably one of the cooler design choices, which I'm always a huge fan of. Now, this is an aesthetic that Miles Morales has. I think Superior Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, or all the versions that this costume took reference and influence from, they all have the red and black webbed fingertips, whereas the rest of their hand is like the black.
Right.
So it kind of has that hobo glove look. No web cartridges on the belt.
I mean, he still has to have some sort of cartridge, though, right?
Or do you think
it's built into the suit?
They're not. Yeah, like I said, who knows where the fuck he's keeping them?
In some places, they call it the prison pocket.
The intricacies of the fabric itself are different as well. It's got different patterns in different places.
Right.
The webbing on the red, definitely deeper, definitely blacker, more pronounced. A white spider on the back that has a completely new design. It looks like the one on the front, the hexagon version.
Right.
But it's a little more spread out on top. So it's angled inward down towards the small of his back. The spider logo on the front is very similar to the older one, but it's got white highlights. Actually, what I'm kind of hoping is that the most recent Spider-Man armor that Spider-Man wore, and he didn't wear just for an issue or an arc, like this was his costume.
Okay.
So there was a couple years where Peter Parker was like the new Tony Stark. Like he had Parker Industries. I mean, he had money, he had resources, and his costume was a lot like his traditional costume, just more armored. So it had that segmented webbing scale armor look to it, but also, and this is a skin that you can get in the new Spider-Man PS4 game, it still had a black spider, but it was underlit with like blue, kind of like arc reactor technology.
Oh, that'd be
and his
cool.
eyes lit up. Like the eyes on the Iron Spider costume, the Iron Spider armor in Infinity War, how they light up. If they do that with this one and they, underlight that spider logo,
like that would just make your day right there.
I mean, you have to admit, every costume that we've talked about so far,
it's been terrible.
I've talked shit on it, so I'm just so used to it. Might as well pull an influence from another version of the Spider-Man costume, much like the big white spider on the back. A lot of people are saying that's borrowed from the PS4 Spider-Man costume. So it's very cool.
Have you seen the stealth Spidey suit?
Yeah, we also have another Spider-Man costume that kind of looks like a Spider-Man noir, but at the same time, it appears to be a shield logo on the chest.
Yes, it's a shield logo, and it kind of looks like he's trying to be very tactical in this one. I don't know if I'd call it the stealth suit. I mean, I know they're calling it the stealth suit, but I feel like he's a tactical Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He also doesn't have fingertips on his gloves, if you are taking a quick peek down there.
Yeah. Like I said, I like the hobo glove look. I don't know, what practicality
So he can
that
stick better.
provides. I mean, there's a chance, but he's never had a problem before. This costume really throws me off. You know what I mean? Like, number one, we don't know where either of these costumes originate from, because let's just assume. All right, just for a second, come with me. When you were in preschool, did they ever like play those records where it was like a story?
Yeah.
And it's like, you play along with the story, and it's just like, we go into the cave, then the monsters come out, and we turn around and run.
You're like,
Dude, that shit was tense. That shit got real.
Well, when you're in kindergarten, I mean, let's be real.
Dude, when was the last time you listened to one of those records?
I wouldn't want
When
to
was the
now.
last time you
It might
popped
bring
one
up
of those
memories.
motherfuckers in? Yeah. So, come with me for a minute, and let's speculate on the origin or the proprietor of these costumes, these Spider-Man suits. Let's say that Tony Stark is out of the picture permanently and has been since the movie that's released before this one, Avengers 4. Let's say Tony Stark doesn't make it, and let's say he doesn't have a bunch of fucking Spider-Man costumes on deck, which is a pretty valid point to make.
Right.
That he's always making suits. So let's just pretend for a second that S.H.I.E.L.D. is making these Spider-Man costumes. There are plenty of versions of Spider-Man, especially like within the cartoon in like the last couple of years. Ever since like the Avengers movie, they've really done a lot to like work in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
into like all of their properties, all of their animated series, their comic books, their movies. Like the Ultimate Spider-Man animated series, essentially that's what Spider-Man was doing. He was training to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Or like
Right.
S.H.I.E.L.D. was training him to be the quote-unquote Ultimate Spider-Man. I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. gave him all these tech upgrades for his web shooters. Then it was either Nick Fury or Agent Coulson, who was like principal at Spider-Man school. Let's just say that Tony Stark is gone and S.H.I.E.L.D. is employing Spider-Man. Maybe they're like, hey, we saw what you did with that Vulture character. Maybe you can do some work for us. And now that we're on the subject, even his red and black costume is reminiscent of a S.H.I.E.L.D. Spider-Man costume.
Right. Well,
And
maybe there's more to be said about these costumes now that you're bringing all this up. Maybe Tony Stark isn't around.
I mean, I hope the fuck he's not. I mean,
What do you got against Tony? Come
I'm
on.
just saying, I mean, what I would prefer is let Spider-Man be Spider-Man, not let Spider-Man mentee under Tony Stark and then
Right.
be employed directly afterwards by a government organization. But you can't win them all, man. I mean, for the last 5, 10, 15 years, Marvel has they've done a lot, and mostly because of their cinematic revenue, that they're taking these superheroes and they're turning them from masked vigilantes into like government employees.
Correct.
And I really wish they would phase that out a little bit. I mean, it's part of the Marvel landscape. I like Agent Coulson, and I'm pumped that they're bringing Agent Coulson back for Captain Marvel.
Right.
And I'm sure he's going to look cool as fuck de-aged. I mean, Marvel and Disney, they almost have a patent on decent de-aging. I wonder what de-aged Thanos looks like.
He looks like Cable.
Speaking of Thanos, so all the Spider-Man costumes and all the speculations, all the photos that have leaked, that's all it is. It's third-party information. But Tom Holland has actually been on Jimmy Kimmel doing like a Spider-Man skit.
Yeah, it was only
Where-
like a week ago, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
like where Jimmy Kimmel's band leader steals his mask and he comes in with the new Far From Home costume, and Jimmy Kimmel even brings up, he was like, I don't understand, like, aren't you supposed to be a pile of ash? And he's just like, oh, he can't talk long, I think Thanos is robbing a bank. He's just like, why would Thanos rob a bank? And he was like, oh, Thanos is poor. So that's about as official as any promo has been. And before we get off of Spider-Man Homecoming, Jake Gyllenhaal is Mysterio. We want to see him in that goddamn helmet. So Captain Marvel looks boring as fuck. I just don't want to see it. They've recently revealed in the comic books that they've completely changed Carol Danvers' origin. I don't think they're like erasing any of her like Miss Marvel days. I don't think that they're going to retcon the fact that she was the female counterpart to a male superhero for years and years and years. But I do think that they're just switching up her actual origin. Because to be real, her actual origin is that she makes a wish. She sees Captain Marvel and she subconsciously thinks like, oh, I would love to be Captain Marvel. He's so fantastic. And she was like within a dangerous vicinity to a wishing machine. And
That seems like a weird origin story.
and she magically she's imbued with like Kree powers. So she's human, but she has like Kree powers, and not necessarily Kree powers, more so the powers of Captain Marvel. And like I said, I don't know about it. too much. That's about the extent of my knowledge on her origin as Miss Marvel. But, I mean, anyone who remembers the Green Lantern movie that just came out, 7 years ago?
Technically, that was erased from the timeline.
Anyone who remembers it happening, they remember a DC superhero that's like a jet fighter pilot who is chosen to be some sort of intergalactic cop. You could have done a few things with Captain Marvel. I don't know why making her some sort of like Kree enforcer is the way they went. I mean, and it could be good. It could be good. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on Marvel's first attempt of a female lead. You know, Miss Marvel, and I'm not ashamed to say this, Miss Marvel was sort of Marvel's power girl. Like, she was known for having a fat ass. And people loved it. And she loved it. And she loved that people loved it. And she didn't hide it. You know, a lot of people drew the costume differently, but most people who have ever drawn Miss Marvel, especially in her like black leotard lightning bolt days,
right,
most of the time they drew her with a thong bottom. You know what I mean? Like all crack in the back, you know what I'm saying? I hear a lot of flack because my wife, Miss Tara, she's been a Carol Danvers fan. She was on board for Miss Marvel, Binary, Warbird, and the Captain Marvel. And she fucks with the new Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. Like, Tara's a Miss Marvel fan. When they released the fact that Captain Marvel is going to be wearing her traditional red and blue costume, Tara's like, that shit ain't her traditional costume. She's been wearing that for like 6 years. But yeah, I mean, it looks all right. What do you think?
About the trailer in general, the movie?
The trailer.
You know, I wasn't in for Wonder Woman, and once I saw Wonder Woman, I was like, oh, that was a pretty dang good movie. I'm glad they pulled that one together. So I'm going in with the same hope on this one, that I'm really just going to dislike it, because I don't want to get my hopes up that we're going to get another good female lead movie, because we've already had one. But I would definitely enjoy it if it was a good movie. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple other things she's done. She's a good actress, but let's see where they go with it.
And she's not a huge name. And Marvel's pretty good at taking actors that aren't huge and making them such.
She was in the movie Room, which is she's a kidnapped victim. And she ends up in like a shed, and she lives in a shed with her son, I believe, who's like, I want to say like 7 or 8, so like 8 years she's in this thing. And hold on, let me
Jesus Christ.
Let me get some real information here. It's a woman who's been held captive for 7 years and whose 5-year-old son was born in captivity. And it's a really great movie because it's really just filmed in a shed with a lady and a son and a creepy guy coming in every once in a while.
Now, I have 2 things to say. One's a question. How does it end? Does she get out? Is she okay? Like, what's? I got something I can tell you about that movie. You tell me what I need to know.
So, yes, she does get out. She ends up being fine.
Oh, great. That movie actually had a billboard in Australia that was left up longer than any other promotional item or any other advertisement ever. It's a fact. I don't know how fun that fact was. I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, it's fun to the extent that that's the only bit of information that I could provide for that movie. And it was fun for me to be able to provide it because I've never even heard of that fucking movie. So what was I ever going to do with that information?
I mean, that takes a lot. I feel like that's a pretty solid thing to...
I don't know I don't know if that was just an accident. It's probably just an accident. And that could be fake too.
Well, anyhow, what I'm saying is, you know, I know we're talking about superheroes and stuff like that. But if you really want to see what this lady can do for acting, I would go watch this movie. And like I said, watch it by yourself so no one sees you cry.
Do we have any non-Marvel, non-DC news?
We do have Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out on Friday.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually going to get into that. Or and probably freak out while playing it.
So it may not be this Friday when you hear this, but on the 26th of October of the year 2018, Red Dead Redemption 2 is out.
I'm pretty pumped for it, man. Especially after playing Spider-Man and like really getting into the open world shit. Like, I can't wait to just jump on a horse and kill some innocent people.
I mean, that's the best part of the game, but let's not be creepy about it.
Yeah,
especially with those eyes right now.
I can't wait to jump on a horse, jump off the horse, then kill the fucking horse.
Jesus.
I can't wait to kill some innocent horses. I can't wait to jump on a family, ride the family to the closest innocent horse, and then jump off the family, kill the horse, and then kill the family. Can you ride an entire family? I'm pretty sure that
they're each carrying an arm and a leg.
I read rumors that in Red Dead Redemption 2 you can now ride entire families. You can ride them individually.
I hope they add that as like a little, like a bonus. There's a mission where the family's just carrying you. Did you play the first one by chance?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I just fucked around on it a lot.
Right. I mean, the first one was cool because it was kind of one of the, I wouldn't say first open worlds, but it was really one of the worlds where you're just kind of like, there's a lot to do in this game.
Especially, see, the benefit of Red Dead Redemption over like GTA and over Spider-Man PS4 is that like there's a lot of not shit. You happen upon these actual locations that are just embedded in between vast amounts of not shit.
Right.
Which I could imagine is probably a lot easier to design and a lot easier to program.
I'm about robbing the banks. I'm about riding the horses. I'm not quite sure about killing the innocent horses, but I'm about riding them horses.
Yeah, only the guilty horses. Let the guilty horses hang. Dude, could you imagine?
But no, that's coming out. That's pretty much, I mean, there really hasn't been much for this October. It's kind of been a slow, easy October. Yeah,
so let's talk about October. I don't watch scary movies. I don't watch scary movies because they put me in kill mode.
Like, what do you mean by kill mode?
As in, I'm a trained killer. I've been trained every single fucking day of my life since I was a young child, since I could stand. Not even walk. Just if I could
stand?
If I could
if
manage,
you could balance?
If I could manage to balance on both feet for over a second,
you were trained.
I was training. Something about a scary movie, man, it flips that switch. You know, when I watched a serial killer like lurk through the shadows of like a unsuspecting family's home, like I'm in that home. And if you fucking try to get some popcorn from me, I'm gonna break your wrist. I'm gonna bite your jugular.
It's gonna be a bad time for you.
Yeah, I just don't like scary movies, man. I'm really not into them. I mean, I like the mythos and I like the older ones. I'm just not into like thriller slasher movies.
Are you into like jump scares?
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just not into it. Like, but what we're not talking about me right now. What we're talking about is Netflix has been putting out some pretty fun Halloween content. One of them, which has one of the most generic names of all time, it's like The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh yeah, I've watched that.
Like, you know how many horror movies have a variation of the words haunting, hill, and house, like all in the same title?
Oh yeah,
there's a lot, but I think that's what they're going for. So you've said you've seen it?
Oh yeah,
and you like it?
You know, there was a couple news articles that said people were passing out while watching this. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure how you passed out while watching it, unless you were just really tired and you fell asleep.
Yeah.
But it's a solid movie. There's, I think, 2 or 3 times that got me, and mostly just because my lovely wife Crystal, she jumped and grabbed me and it scared me. But you know, I was raised on scary movies as a kid, so basically if there's gonna be a jump scare, I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
like I'm ready to punch something in the face if it happens.
Did Crystal get punched in the face at all?
No, she didn't. There was probably about 2 or 3 times that the show got me. And other than that, I mean, it was a good show. There is one part, though, and I just want to warn people for this. I'm not going to spoil the show. I'm not going to ruin the show for you. I want to say it was like episode 6 or 7. I think it was 6. They're in one of the houses, and there's a funeral happening. They do this thing with the camera where, like, everyone's stationary, but the camera's rotating around them. They do it for, like, 15 minutes. I got a little sick on that part.
Was it sick on scares?
No, it was. I was getting motion sickness.
Sick from fright.
We could say that, but that's not what happened.
So you're saying that the camera work, although cinematic, was very spooky. I know Tara's been wanting to watch it, so we might check it out. But one thing that she has been watching, The Curious Confections of Christina McConnell. It's a fun little Netflix cooking show. For the most part, it seems to be cooking. She makes candles and other,
very crafty. Very crafty.
Yeah. Some of the shit, most of the shit, very impressive. Definitely better for a TV show than like practical application.
Oh yeah.
None of these housewives are making these fucking intricate haunted houses out of gingerbread. Maybe, I'm sure a few are, especially like the real.
Well, now that you've seen the show, I mean, you have to.
But it's fun. They incorporate puppets. It is interesting, and probably one of the coolest facts about it is that they are Jim Henson Company puppets.
Right.
Did you see Predator?
The new one?
Mm-hmm.
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well,
have you?
I have not.
Oh.
So speaking of monster movies and October, Halloween, spooky stuff, the new Halloween movie is a continuation, is a sequel, direct sequel to Halloween. Was it H2O? Was that the last one?
It was H2O, yep.
Rob Zombie remade it. So, dude, it's crazy. People are already forgetting about the Rob Zombie remakes. He had 2, right? He did 1 and he did a
2.
sequel.
He did 2, yeah.
Halloween's going to be fun this year. There's a lot of cool shit coming out. So, speaking of scary monsters within a pop culture context, of course, let's go ahead and break them off a piece of the Sony in association with Marvel movie, Venom. The comic book references were thick, but influence, not so much.
I would have liked a better story for one. Let's just throw that out there. I would have liked a better story altogether.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that they tried to make Eddie a completely different character than he was in the comics.
Yeah. I know they did that to try to like add contrast to the whole symbiote human relationship. You know, Venom is big and imposing and ruthless and bloodthirsty. Eddie Brock just wants to help the common folk. You know, he's kind of spazzy. He's kind of unsure. He's kind of a hipster. I mean, not like traditional hipster archetype, but like no one else wakes up wearing 8 fucking bracelets on each wrist.
His girlfriend in the movie wakes him up by putting a bracelet on his arm.
Yeah, and then she wraps it around her neck and she jumps out the window.
It wasn't tied to anything, though. I didn't understand what the whole reference was.
I don't know. I think it was a sexual thing. So, originally, this was going to be Sony's Logan. This was going to be their rated R superhero movie. And people were excited for that. And it worked out well for Deadpool. It worked out well for Logan. Which, those two movies are two completely different fucking movies. This movie kind of sits in between them.
Well, you know what those two movies had that this one didn't?
What's that?
Story.
This initially started as their rated R superhero movie, and then it turned into almost their submission into the Marvel universe.
Right.
Like their press package. Like, this is what we can do on our own without you holding our hand. If you can let us in, that'd be nice. They kind of toned back Venom so they could be considered. So maybe they could work their way into the cinematic universe. And this is just something that I've read, and it shows. It definitely shows. Venom definitely plays like a Marvel movie.
Yep.
There's a lot of lighthearted banter. No one's really afraid of Venom throughout the movie.
Nope.
There's a few scenes where like some pretty regular people see Venom doing some pretty crazy shit, and they're just kind of like silly about it.
Like they walk up to him afterwards.
Important points of the movie: the characters were inconsistent. The villain was terrible.
Absolutely.
The leader of the Life Foundation, which does have comic book roots, but he was just goofy and just too theatric, like when talking to just like his subsidiaries. I understand like when you're speaking to the press, when you're doing a presentation, but when you're like just talking to your people, like your direct employees, the people that have seen you do fucked up things, the people that have seen you be a regular guy, and you're talking like you're reading from a fucking script. It's embarrassing to watch.
Right.
The point in the movie where I gave up is when they show this Carlton Drake character in this terrible outfit. He's got like a sports coat on with like a zip up turtleneck, and then they like flash forward like 4 weeks or 6 months. They flash forward a considerable amount of time, and he's wearing the same fucking outfit. That's attention to detail. That's the shit that sucks me out. It's
like they shot those scenes on the same day. They're like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, it's very likely that he could just be wearing that same exact outfit. But, like, that's not good movie making.
No.
It's distracting, and it's a shitty outfit. Like, some of the designs were cool. The headquarters for the Life Foundation, how it was, like, split between the mountain region.
Yeah.
Like, that was cool. Some designs, like, as far as, like, scenes and sets, they were fine. But, like I said, it felt like two different movies. Eddie Brock loses his job because he confronts Carlton Drake about some sketchy human testing that he's been.
Right.
And he loses his job. He loses his relationship just because, and he like had shit for evidence as well. The evidence that he did have, he didn't even and couldn't even present to anyone.
Right.
He was willing to lose all that. He was willing to play at those stakes. But like throughout the rest of the movie, he's like a pussy that like won't say shit to anyone. So what were your thoughts on Venom?
Do we want to just go into it and just have that in the background? Or
yeah, sure.
Just see what happens.
I think you'll add some atmosphere, especially when we get talking about like the little dog scene in Venom.
My thoughts on Venom. It was a 3 out of 7 at this point. You went to the bathroom at this part, the little dog part.
You don't have to tell the listeners I had to take a potty break. Right? Damn.
So anyhow, you were leaving, and there's a scene in the hospital where they get Venom out of Eddie, and they lock him in this like little chamber, and you're like, well, there's still vents he can go through. There's all sorts of stuff that he can just get out of this room in, which he does. And then it shows the dog, which you've seen already from a previous scene, and you're like, oh, the dog's going to come into play at some point. Well, the dog comes into play, Venom jumps into this dog. And then in the hospital scene, his girlfriend has come walking out, and then she sees the dog, and you're like, oh, now he's going to jump from the dog into his girlfriend. But previous to this scene, what really gets me is they try to emphasize so much that you have to have the perfect, and I mean perfect match for Venom or Riot or any of them to have a host. You have to have the perfect match.
Yeah, because otherwise the symbiote is going to turn you into a teenage Japanese girl from a horror movie.
Right, you're going to die.
Yeah, and you're going to twist around, your head's going to spin.
And it's just not going to be comfortable for anyone involved.
Yeah.
But they make this point, and this is why, again, the movie doesn't make sense, because they make this point like 2 or 3 times before this scene, and then all of a sudden Venom's just popping around people like it's like everyone's popping Molly. Yeah. They're just going to town.
People just popping Venom.
Yeah. And then what really gets me is you came back on this scene. She is in full Venom form with a huge ass.
Femivenom.
Oh, there you go. That was a pretty good one. But she's back with a huge ass.
V-male.
And a lot bigger of an ass than she had when she's human.
Oh, that would...
I mean, let's be real. But she comes back, and she's Venom. She makes out with Eddie, and then Venom jumps over. But we've emphasized in this movie already 3 or 4 times that you have to be the perfect host to be able to transform. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That's the point of the movie where I was done.
Yeah, and I remember you saying, because you brought that up, and I was like, yeah, but, after a certain amount of time, the reason that the human host body dies is because the symbiote has to start feeding on the host, because the host isn't feeding on the human flesh or whatever it needs for the symbiote to sustain itself. And I brought that up, and you're like, Eddie reached full Venom. They made a big deal out of it. Like, oh, it's the symbiosis is complete. Like, we've never seen it. And it takes him scenes and scenes. It takes him a minute before they reach that point where they can bond completely. There are no Marvel connections, very little. I think they mention J. Jonah Jameson's son, who is indeed an astronaut, and I think his character dies Superman in the very beginning. Yeah, they do mention Superman.
Which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but they do mention him.
That's for sure. And J. Jonah Jameson's son is also known as Man-Wolf. He becomes a werewolf in the comic books.
I mean, his name had a scene. That was about it.
Yeah, and I think his dead body was in tow at one point in the movie.
Was that his body?
In the very beginning, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, yep.
So, it felt like a Marvel movie. When we think about Marvel movies, we think about, like, lighthearted quips.
Yep.
Moments of levity, and otherwise, like, pretty intense scenes.
Yep.
Also, the hero parallel complex, where like the villain is essentially just an evil version of the hero.
Correct.
And Iron Man, and Captain America, and Ant-Man.
Yep.
All these villains are essentially just the evil version of their heroic counterparts.
Yep.
This movie plays that perfectly. I mean, it was bad.
Well,
they did
yeah.
They did
it was
the fuck
there.
out of it.
It was there.
And it was hilarious how like all these symbiotes had these human names, like these like English language names. And of course they could say that Venom had a name that was translated into Venom. Like on my planet they call me Slimy Slurp, as a pile of goo would say. But still, like, within translation, you don't usually change your name when you go somewhere else.
Right.
You just say, hey, my name is this. They might have a version of that name,
right,
but you don't change your name. You just keep the same name. So the fact that they have, like, the symbiotes' names were Venom and Riot, and, like, it's pretty ridiculous. And that, like, out of all the dumb shit that they go into explaining in these movies, obviously, let's talk about the real shit. Let's talk about the lack of Spider-Man. No Spider-Man. I was really pulling for a Spider-Man cameo. Anyone who listens to the show, they know that I'm always, and I have always been, right up there, pressing the fact that I'm pretty positive that they're going to have a Spider-Man cameo, or at least a Peter Parker cameo, at which they did not.
Something would have been nice. Even a news article that we were in some sort of universe with Spider-Man.
We could give the listeners a better movie right now. It would have been nice if they did this, or they should have done this, and it would have been cool if they just included this, but that's not going to happen. So yeah, there's no Spider-Man, no other heroes involved, and like, even though they say that it's not specifically stated whether or not this movie takes place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
When Eddie Brock was talking to Mona Lisa, she mentions that the symbiotes were aliens. He laughs about it. If this was taking place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he would have had already been exposed to aliens.
Right.
You know, because there's the attack on New York in Avengers 1. I mean, they've seen it. I think that silenced all the people in doubt.
Right.
Like the people saying that this could still be in the Marvel Universe. It's just in San Francisco and not in New York. I don't fucking think so. You know, before we wrap this up, because we are running out of time, let's talk about the most ridiculous fucking after credit scene of all time. So we have Eddie Brock approaching this super secure prison cell.
Yep.
As he approaches the cell, he sees a man of whom has his back turned to Eddie Brock, but still speaking to Eddie Brock, and it appears that he's like writing in blood, like on his bed or on the wall.
He's doing something.
He's doing some creepy shit. He turns around, Harrelson Ford.
Woody Harrelson.
Oh shit! Who did I say?
Harrelson Ford.
So he turns around, and it's Han Solo himself, Indiana Jones. Dude, that would have been fucking sick,
That
though.
would have been awesome.
That would have been way better.
I would have taken that. I would have been
So-
like, well, the movie just redeemed itself.
Yeah, so he turns around, and it's Woody Harrelson, which is fun to the effect that, like, Cletus Cassidy is like a redneck. Like, he's a
Right.
southern redneck. He's crazy as fuck, but he's totally a hick. And, like, Woody Harrelson plays a good hick.
Right.
Woody Harrelson's father was a convicted and executed hitman.
Right.
For real. Like, that's some wild shit. So you can imagine that Woody Harrelson would have the psychotic chops to play Cletus Cassidy. I'm not dogging on that, but this motherfucker is wearing the most ridiculous wig in cinematic history. He looks like the kid from Home Alone 3. It looked like a Muppet head. Like
It really
was
did.
so bad. And he says some dumb shit like, let me tell you this, buddy, when I get the fuck out of here, there's gonna be some carnage. Yeah, that's the name of the character that
Right.
I'm gonna play next movie. It's Carnage. Like,
And then it ends. You didn't even have to say it was Carnage. We knew it was Carnage.
yeah, we fucking get it. You're Carnage.
Congratulations.
Let's talk about the best part of that movie.
Was it the
and-
riot scene? When the cops...
Oh, yeah. I mean,
When the cops shot the smoke, and then mid-fight scene we're complaining because they couldn't see?
Yeah.
With that scene?
Yeah, that scene. Like, we can't get a visual. Like, motherfucker, all the smoke is yours. You're doing this. Why would you do that?
It didn't make any sense. It was just to hide some shit that they didn't want
polish
us
and
to see.
CG.
Right.
Yeah. So,
But no, I'm assuming you're going to say the best part post-credit scene?
the post-credit scene, yeah. And it wasn't a scene that, had anything to do with the Venom movie, but it was cute because it says, in another universe.
Right.
And it was a clip, about a 3 to 5 minute clip of the new Into the Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah,
And
it was like 5 minutes.
my goddamn, that movie, that's going to be the movie, man.
It looks like
That's
a legit
gonna be
movie.
the movie.
It
I
does.
mean, we have Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir. We have John Mulaney as Spider-Ham, a.k.a. Peter Porker. They've even included Penny Parker and SP//DR, which is the robot. They're like genetically linked through her DNA. It's a very crazy version of the Spider-Man character. And then, of course, we got Miles Morales. We got Spider-Gwen. You know what I really hope?
What's that?
And this is what I really fucking hope. I really hope they bring the 90s Spider-Man, animated Spider-Man, into this movie, voiced by the original voice actor.
That would be pretty fucking dope.
Could you imagine just hearing that riff, that Joe Perry,
Right.
super 90s, just shredding guitar riff? Think of that Spider-Man in your head, and you can hear that voice.
Right.
So yeah, if they could get Christopher Daniel Barnes, how cool would it be if you just heard his voice off screen and then like it panned over to just the classic 90s animated Spider-Man?
That'd be pretty sick.
That'd be epic. Because they've had episodes of that series where he was dealing with the different versions of himself from different universes. It would be sweet. It would be perfect. I mean, we can all hope. So yeah, we're gonna have to bounce out. You got any more info over there before I close this out?
I do. He was also in Captain Planet.
Oh, he was Captain Planet?
No, he was in Captain
what do you-
Planet. He was
what-
just additional voices. It didn't say who he was.
The dreaded villain additional voices.
Right, he just did something.
All right, everyone. I appreciate you guys tuning the fuck in after such a long stint of zero content. There's a chance that maybe this will be our very last podcast ever. Or is it just the beginning of season 2 of the Hype and Cowl Podcast? You decide.